Welcome to this episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a matter of the heart. We have special guests. We got the Lisa show today. Lisa. We have special guest Lisa Philyaw with us. She is going to share her heart story. So thank you so much for being here, for sharing this platform with me and my audience. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me here and for doing this show for all of us to be inspired and learn to get more connected with ourselves and forgive ourselves as well. So thank you. So I am a confidence coach, and my story is one that has to do with anxiety and sleep and my career and how to feel emotions and what it really looks like to be aligned with yourself. So I would love to dive in and into that a little bit more with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see you're a certified Oola life coach.
Yes, yeah, certified life coach, and I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology, which is just a fancy way to say psychology applied to the workplace. So I'm really into the mindset and energy in terms of work and how we can be ourselves at work and love ourselves and accept ourselves at work.
Oh, I love that. So we have very similar modalities, because I'm an energetic mindset mentor, and
I love it.
I love the energy, the psychology behind it, and, our subconscious, like just holding so many memories back and either preventing us or helping us to catapult forward in whatever journey it is. So tell us before, like, what got you started into this type of work?
Yeah, so I was working at a leadership development company, and I had a bunch of presentations. I was a trainer. And before the presentations, I would get so anxious that I would not be able to sleep for the entire night. And it wasn't just like a mild, oh, I can't sleep. It was like full blown panic, waking my husband, shaking him, like furious at myself because it just felt like a stupid problem. Like other people have real problems. This isn't a legitimate issue. So I should just be able to fall asleep. So I'd get so anxious and so mad at myself. And it was like I was tearing myself apart. And it got so bad. I mean, I was able to go to work and do the trainings and stuff, but it got to the point where I was just crying after work every day. And I didn't think I could do it anymore. And so I knew I had a choice. I either had to quit and find something easier, or I had to figure out how to get through it all in a way that wasn't just about beating myself up, because that tactic, which had gotten me so far, wasn't working anymore because it was just keeping me up all night in like this frantic terror to myself.
Wow, that's horrible. I've experienced something similar like that.
Yeah.
So when you realized that you had to change, what modalities did you implement?
Yeah, so I actually started by going to therapy, and that did help because I was able to see what had happened, like what kind of some of the stories were there, and so that helped. But I wasn't really getting past it, and I nothing against therapy. I think it's an incredibly important, useful tool. I just knew that I needed something in addition to that, and so
Mm-hmm.
went to the doctor. I did get a prescription. I don't even remember what it was, and for some pills to help me sleep. And it worked for like once or twice, but then I just got anxious about the pills. And like, what was this going to do to my body? I was just finding my brain looked for every reason to make it into anxiety. So what I then did was found coaching, life coaching. And really what ended up helping me to get out of it was accepting that it was okay to not be able to sleep. I remember being on, like, having a coach, and the coach said, what if not sleeping is not a problem? That's
Different way to look at it, different
it is,
perspective.
isn't it kind of ludicrous? Like if someone looks at you and says, oh, not sleeping's not a problem, my mind was, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, why not? I mean, why is it a problem that you can't sleep? Some people like to stay up all night long, right? When you were a
Right.
kid, you were used to, didn't you have a goal to stay up all night long when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then it was fun. But
Yeah.
in this moment when I heard that, I just felt like that was ridiculous. But I leaned into
Mm-hmm.
it, and I just worked on focusing on my body. Like at night, when I was trying to sleep, what if this isn't a problem? Let's just focus on the anxiety. I had a conversation with my anxiety. I named it Anxious Annie. And then I had another character, Rhonda, refined Rhonda, who is the frustration side of me.
Mhm.
So I talked with Anxious Annie and refined Rhonda, and we like had a sit down conversation. I mean, this is just me with myself, but I
Right.
got to know them and see what their motives were, see how they were all trying to help me. We just all had different ideas about what that could look like, and just let it be okay. And just to ask each one what I needed from them, and also just love them and thank them for being there for me instead of just getting mad at myself, all these aspects of myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the shift came. And it has gotten to the point now where I don't have issues with sleep. There will be nights where I don't fall asleep, right away. And like you just said, oh, okay, it's not a problem. It's fun. Or it's usually when my mind comes up with the most incredible ideas. So I let that be okay. But it really, it is about allowing yourself to feel how you feel and not have to judge
Right.
it.
Right. And yeah, and not have to figure out the why. I mean, figure
Yeah.
out the why without obsessing over the why.
Yeah.
So I love that you named them, because one of the things that we talk about, so I'm a certified aroma freedom practitioner, and one of the things I walk my clients through is, okay, you have fear, your fear of going live, fear of, walking to this, restaurant, or walking into this party, this family get together that you have to do. What are you truly afraid of? And then we have like this ready, set, go method where you walk through that fear and you say, hey, fear, I totally get you. Thank you for protecting me, but I got this. And this is what's going to happen if I work through this. This is what's going to happen if I just let you control me. But to give it an actual name personalizes it. And years ago, I read a book, and I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was taking those personas, that fear and that anxiety, and it was described, it was a allegory story, and it was described like them living in a village, and they were, like the main character, these were fear and anxiety and greed, those were her cousins. And every time she would like, get home from work, she'd walk into her home like in the village, and behind her were mountains. They would be there nagging her and, enticing her to get more angry or whatever. It was just a really cool concept of our emotions, because I really didn't know what emotions were until I was 40. I'm 53 now. So it took me a long time everything came out as anger. So to be able to identify that and say, hey, Anxious Annie, let's talk. What a great modality, and what a great concept to get inside your head that way and really visit your inner self and say, okay, where are you coming from, and why are you preventing me from being my best self?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you just shared about anger. It's interesting to me because what I realized since getting more in touch with the anxiety is that was like my blanket emotion. Like, oh, everything meant anxiety. And my brain turned it to that because I felt safe feeling anxiety. Like it was an acceptable emotion to me, but anger didn't seem acceptable. And I don't know exactly all of the reasons why, but I think just society and how I was brought up, you want to be nice, you want to be a team player, you don't want to be angry. So now that I've worked through that, I've noticed anger to such a stronger degree, and I let myself feel it. So I'm curious, you mentioned you were angry. Was that more of a go-to for you, or how did that play out for you?
Well, the anger was just my response to I was abused when I was younger. I was sexually molested from the age of 3 on. And then I got into this really bad relationship when I was 15 with a narcissist gaslighter who totally controlled my mind. And I was just so angry. My parents were divorced. I had 3 older brothers that were really mean and picked on me a lot. And so it was just a lot of dysfunction. And, if I cried, they'd be like, stop crying. You're such a girl, don't cry. So like you stifle your cries. And then, they would pick on me. Like my favorite show is, Sesame Street, Captain Kangaroo. So if I'd be sitting there Saturday morning watching TV, the boys would come and they would put on American Bandstand. This is back in the 70s. And I would get really upset because one, I'm watching TV, you just came over and changed it. You don't even say anything. And then you put on this show. I was 5 years old. I didn't care about American Bandstand. So just like the disrespect, and there was like no healthy boundaries. So I didn't really know, there was a lot of yelling and screaming in my household while I was growing up. So I didn't really know what other feelings were. So everything, I was just really angry if I wasn't heard or seen. So it was really amazing to learn. I started therapy at 18 and I went through different counselors, and they're like, well, how do you feel? I'm like, I'll tell you how I feel. I want to come over across the table and choke you to death. Okay. That's how I feel. I'm just really angry. And I didn't know why until I was in 2013, when I started a practice of gratitude. I took a challenge from Ann Camp's 1000 Gifts, Dare to Live Life Differently. And when I started writing down things that I was grateful for and the reason why, my heart started to change and I started to appreciate the thing. And I started to realize, what does it truly mean to be joy filled? What does it truly mean to experience sadness and happiness and to grieve what we've lost, because there was no grieving process. And one of the things about forgiving, I can forgive others, but forgiving yourself, you have to grieve what you did in order to forgive. So, and the grieving process is very slow and it doesn't just cure you. You just don't stop going through it. So when I learned that coping mechanism, it changed my total perspective on how I was going to process things and receive information. So captivating your thoughts and really examining them and like, okay, how does this make me feel? And why do I feel this way? And just really examining those emotions, getting inside your head, just really helped me identify it and understand anger is depression turned outward. So instead of going within myself and being depressed, locking myself in a bedroom, I just spewed out anger. I wore black and I just lashed out at people. And when I had anxiety, I would smoke or I would drink to calm my nerves. And then if I got really flipped out, like a panic attack, I would like scream like a raging lunatic. Like I would just spew at the top of my lungs and I would actually get an asthma attack. So not healthy ways to express yourself when you don't know, like when you don't have the proper tools to learn how to deal with these emotions that are going inside of you, because our subconscious remembers so much of what we go through. And we think that when we ignore it and we stuff it, it's going to go away, but it never goes away. It manifests itself through the anxiety, through the no sleep, through overeating, whatever we do. And like, we'll go to the doctors. Well, here, take this happy pill. Well, I didn't like happy pills because I was allergic to synthetics and they would make me so sick to my stomach. I'd be like, no, I'm not taking that. So then how do you process it? How do you deal with it? And writing was a huge escape for me. So what was your best? So other than having the conversations with you, did you use any other modalities to help you heal?
Yeah. So I think one other thing is just finding other ways to express yourself. I did write, but for me, verbal processes were more helpful. So I literally would just talk to myself out loud. And I let myself go into the like 7-year-old me who was upset about something. And I would yell it out. And then I would also be the coach to myself at the same time and let it be okay. I think, I don't know about you, but for me as a coach, part of the training like is all about like, what are the thoughts? What are the stories stopping you? And that is so important. But what can sometimes happen is we try to coach ourselves out of feeling. We try to think our way into a better life instead of the whole energy process of healing. Like you're saying with the grief point, letting yourself be heard is so important. So just sitting there hearing myself or acknowledging that I was upset, that helped in itself to just let it be okay, to not have to be a superhuman or to try to like feel better. You don't have to try to feel better. You can express it and it'll move through you.
Right. Oh yeah. Tears are so cleansing. So cleansing. Yeah. And the power of speaking out is, and like I always tell my clients, a pen and paper are so powerful. As soon as you speak the words out loud, you share your story, that's when the grieving and the healing process begins. Something
Yeah.
about the spoken word, in your mind, that hears it, your body gets that relief. You can feel the burden just lift when especially if it's a trusted person, you know.
Hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, just because I
Yeah.
want people to be able to express themselves, and hearing our audience to hear our stories and their struggles. Like sometimes, especially being a coach, oh, well, you have it all together, you're perfect. Like I've had people say, oh, well, what have you gone through? Your life is so perfect. I'm like, you don't know that just from looking at me or hearing my voice. You have no idea what I've been through or what I've gone through. And, I mean, I was poor as poor. And we were very poor growing up in the 70s. Parents divorced. I come from a traditional Catholic Italian family. My mom and dad were the first people in their family to get divorced. And here we are, shunned. We don't even get to see our huge Italian family. And then my mom and dad are fighting back and forth about this and that and money. And, you hear this as a three. I was only 2 or 3 when they broke up. And then you grow up in this dysfunctional family and you have these different experiences. I mean, I was sexually, abused and by a relative. And I mean, I'm 3. I don't know that that's wrong. You're a kid. What do you know? And then you're exposed to different things that shape you as you grow. And then you start experiencing other people's families and you're like, well, wait a minute. My family wasn't like that. They were so different. And then when I started questioning, I remember the first time I told my mom that I was molested, she told me that that I was lying, that I made it up, that I must have seen it on TV. And I'm like, yeah. So then you have that trust issue, and then there's the
Yeah.
unhealthy boundaries. And then you yourself try to have a relationship with other people, and there's trust. You don't trust people. And I got to the point where I didn't trust God. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust anyone. So then I'm trying to navigate life and make these decisions, and I'm just buried and angry. And I'm like, I don't really know if I'm doing this right. Like, what is this? And so I started studying other people, and I decided I'd be the black sheep of my family and not do what they were doing, because what they were doing compared to what my friends were doing in their families didn't jive. And I was just like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I was trying to do it on my own, and that got to be a very big challenge. So thankfully, I had some great mentors and people. We did not call them coaches back this would have been the 80s by now. We just called them mentors or confidants that we can connect with. And, you could just sit and chat with them and they would give you different sets, skill sets. But why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? So I was very aggressive. And I took one of those personality tests because I love taking those personality tests. And
Yeah.
I was charted as intimidating. I go, little old me intimidating. Okay. And I'm like, I kind of like it. I'm intimidating. But I thought about that and it's just like, I'm okay with it. So I really do. I really captivate my thoughts and really concentrate on what the words mean, because the root of words, I'm starting to get my graduate theology degree. And last year I took an English class. I had the best English teacher and we were doing pastoral writing and I was writing words. She's like, do you know what that word means? And I'm like, yeah, it means this. She goes, no, look up the root word. And when I started doing that, I realized like this word means this. Like, well, I don't want to use it that way. And it really made an impression on me because I've loved to write. I've been an avid reader forever. And I started writing like, as little as, how old are you? First, second grade. And I remember they used to have writing contests and I used to submit my stories. When my mom passed away, I found all these stories that were submitted and I got like, 4th place, 3rd place, whatever. And I thought, wow, she kept all of these. And some of them were really cool. And it's just, I wrote that? Like, that's pretty, inspiring from a 2nd grader or a 3rd grader. So apparently I've had it like, in me, but words were always so important because, what you said, and we talked earlier about the F word, I don't like that word. I didn't know why I didn't like it. Now I know why. And there's certain words that have a powerful impact. And my husband and I go back and forth about words because he'll say something and then I'll say something. And he's like, oh, why did you say that? I'm like, well, what do you think that word means? And then he'll tell me, I'm like, no, that's not what I thought it means. And it was funny because somebody posted in my Facebook group today. I did a video and I was walking, and apparently they liked the way my hair looked. And they're like, they did hashtag replay. I hate your hair. And I'm like, what is that, like a negative thing? Or I mean, I didn't see it as a compliment, but I didn't see it as a derogatory remark either. And so it's just like, okay, so I had to really think about what that meant. Like, where are they coming from when they said that? So
Yeah,
you experience the same thing?
it is powerful when you think about words, because even words that we all would assume we would say the same thing or mean the same thing, like goals. One person's idea of what it means to set a goal is so different than another person's. Healing,
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, those words, we all have such different approaches to what they are. And if somebody says something to you, all you ever know is your thoughts about what they mean. You don't ever really know them. You just know your projected version of them based on what you think they mean by what they say, by your version of their words. Same is true for them. So we never really get to meet other people. We just meet how we see the other people, and all of these connections that come from words. I think what we miss, though, is the energy behind the words. Whether they
Mm-hmm.
said the word hate and they meant it in like a fun, like playful
Mm-hmm.
way, or they meant it in a really enraged type of way, we can't tell over the written word. But if you can feel the energy behind it, you
Yeah.
know. I think for me, sometimes if I don't know how I'm feeling, like I don't like, a feeling is like the one word descriptor for the chemical emotional experience you're having. If you don't know what that is, you just know you're experiencing something. I like to move. Like I'll just move how I feel, and it lets
Mm-hmm.
it out. I don't have to name it. I don't even have to understand it. I just feel from a physical, like a dance, I dance it out. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen Grey's Anatomy, but they kind of do that in a more playful way where they actually are dancing with music. I would just do it in my room by myself, or I'll chant, or I'll whatever sound comes out that helps me to let the energy out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. That's a wonderful way to express yourself. And because as soon as you get your body moved, I know my mindset coach will do that with us on a call. All right, let's like, shake those arms and do circles and stand up and just wiggle. And so yes, it is definitely the body movement is so. And we talk about the energy in the room, and like people like, oh, what are you talking about? What does that mean by energy? And you're like, just walking into a room, you can immediately feel the vibes. Like, if you scan the room, you can see like the different, like the people's expressions on their face. And like, if somebody's having a negative conversation or, and I'm always like, you want to change the energy in the room, walk in with a big smile and just say, hi, how are you? And what have you been up to? And acknowledge the presence of somebody, because it totally changes the way they're feeling, and your energy, your high energy is going to actually permeate them. And I don't know, you probably have the chart. I can't remember where it's from right now. But the cup, the energy cup, and it's got, the orange, red, the green, and then the blue, and it's got like the different emotions from the frustrated anger to the serene. I love talking about like your cup's half full or half empty. And so this picture, I do a lot of my workshops. I'll show that cup, that energy cup. It's like, I spent so much time at the bottom of the cup, with all this frustration and anger, and I didn't know why. And then when I started recognizing my feelings and acknowledging them and saying, hey, it's okay. It's all right for me to cry. It's okay for me to feel angry. It's okay. I'm going to express that. I started moving up the cup, and my cup started becoming full. And it
Yeah.
was a really beautiful, I'm a visual learner, so it's a really beautiful visual for me. And then you can actually feel your energy rise. And like one of the things I do first thing in the morning is assess myself, like, how do I feel today? And if my energy is low, and if I'm feeling like I'm dragging or whatever, I do things. I'll dance, I'll pray, I'll start like singing to get that energy up and say, okay, come on, let's process it. What's bothering you? Like, was it a bad dream? Was it a conversation you had yesterday? Like, what's going on with you? So I have conversations in my head, they just don't have names.
Yeah,
But I
that's
like the names.
I have not heard of the emotional cup. I've used the emotional
Okay.
scale, but I love what you're sharing with it. I think
Yeah.
if we can think of emotions almost like a rainbow, where each emotion is a different color, it takes away the
Mhm.
the judgment too. We don't have to think of a positive emotion as better than a negative emotion. We can just learn from every emotion
Exactly.
and move
Yeah.
through it. Almost like joy, when people talk about wanting to live a joyful life, there's joy from an emotional sense, but I almost think there's a joy underneath that doesn't have to do with circumstance or emotion or thoughts. It's just us in our like energy, when we're in touch with who we are from an energy essence, there's that joy. And then yes, you might be feeling anxiety or anger or sorrow or excitement on top of it, and that's more of the emotional level. Now all of those emotions are just different colors in that rainbow, but the joy beneath of just the trust beneath is always there. Oh,
Yeah, and that is so true. I just pressed my mute button.
okay.
So I love what you're doing. It's amazing. I imagine you work with a lot of different clients. If you could give advice to somebody to help them change the way their feelings are, to go from that to raise their energies, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give?
I think start with just noticing where you're at physically. It's instead of trying to interpret what's happening from a mental place, just say, okay, I'm experiencing anxiety. My heart is beating. That's all that's happening. That's it. No judgment, no drama. Just focus on the physical sensation. Don't make it mean anything. Just that helps you to stay really present, gets rid of all the stories your brain makes about it, which is often what magnifies these emotions that don't feel so great, and lets you know you can get through it.
That's beautiful. I love that. So we are going to put in the description box ways to connect with you, how our audience can find out what you offer as far as your coaching services and things like that, and any Facebook group you might have, or follow you on Instagram. So thank you so much for sharing your modality. I love what you're doing. And I love we're aligned, but your practice is a little bit different, slightly different. So if anybody out there needs to connect with Lisa, check the description box. If you know anyone that can benefit from this conversation, please share it with them, regardless of where you find it on the platform, if you're on YouTube, social media, or on the podcast itself. And I just want you to remember that forgiving yourself is a choice. It's all a matter of the heart. Thanks for joining today.
Yeah.